All right, I'm going to show you today how to be able to bring in floor plans that you can actually model the end product that you're looking for. Let me have different floor plans and then bring them into Revit. And then that allows me to go ahead and create things that I'm looking for, right? So in this case, and I'll put this in the description below, I'm going to bring in these three things, right? Or these two things, and then this is what the final outcome is going to look like. But what that means is, okay, and this is purely based on practicing and developing your own skill set, okay? But I got one comment that I like to always use for anybody that's trying to learn Revit. If you're not cheating, you're not trying, okay? Always utilize that mindset until you get better, until you get perfect, okay? So what I'm gonna do is bring in these things and I'm gonna show you how to bring them in so you understand how we can create our floor plan. So first you saw level 1 and you saw level 2. So we saw a ground and we saw level 1. So what we're going to do right now is make sure that we have that set up. All right, so now in this case here, I'm going to go ahead and right click. I'm going to duplicate a view with detailing. And then this one here, I'm going to rename this ground, but I'll do it in a second. Let's go over to section. All right, see, I'm going to delete this. I'm going to just make one. This is level 1 right here, right? Well, I'm going to go to architecture. We're going to create another level. And this level, we're going to call this ground. And you may see this is all right. So what we're going to do is we are going to move these things up and down. The first thing that we did is we lined up our grids with our image. And then once we got our image in here, what I want you to do is I want you to click on the image and then I want you to pin it. We do that to make sure that we'll make sure that we are not moving anything. So I'm gonna go back to the other floor as well too. And I'm gonna do the same thing here. I'm gonna pin it. Make sure that you go ahead and pin. All right, and so now we'll go back to the ground floor. And so now we wanna make sure that we are drawing this out, making sure that this is going for what we're looking for. So in this case, we are going to go ahead and do the outline of this. And as you can see here, we got curtain wall and mullions, which we're gonna draw. And then we're going to have our outline for this design. And then we're going to also do our, and so as this journey, we're going to go through this so you can go and design this. But this is only practice. So when you decide to do your own, you can use this tutorial as that as such. Okay. So in this case right here, now we got it drawn out. Now you saw what it looks like. We're going to continue to go. So now we're going to make sure we get this. And then the second thing we're going to do is in the first one, we did elevations, okay? And then now what we're gonna do is we are going to get our grids lined up. So I did too many already, so I'm gonna get rid of one here, all right? And then I may use 2 grids. I'm gonna see, now I'm gonna go ahead and do this, right? Everything we do here, we always want to make sure, and then we're going to do a landscape as well, but lining everything up by grids, guys. All right, this is how we do it. All right, we always make sure that we're going to do the same thing here. And typically when I do a grid, I always do a grids by stairs. All right, stairs or elevators. It's always one of those things where it's like, okay, cool. So we'll come over here. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to grid up here. Okay. All right, so now that is aligned. Cool. And actually, no. I'm going to make sure that this grid is going to be in the middle of the wall. All right, went over. That's that grid there, lining up. Okay. And then also, I'm going to go ahead and do my other grid at the end. So by the time we get done, we're going to show you the right way to do everything here. And so I'm going to now align this. All right, so now we've got alignment with our grids. And typically, I like to always have these equally spaced. So now I'm going to go back here, and then I'm going to go to this. Let me see what we got, 794. Let's see what I got here. All right, and they're saying, okay, cool. So now in this case, for this grid, I'm gonna go ahead and look at it and say, okay, what can I do here to make sure that this is aligning just like I want, right? And so what I'm gonna do in this case here is I'm gonna make sure that this is just moved up just a tad bit. All right. So now I got my grids here. And I'm gonna go ahead and let's just see here. All right. So now I got that. I'm gonna go ahead and put dimensions here. All right, perfect. So I got dimensions on both sides. I got grids on both sides. All right. Now, what am I gonna do? Next thing I'm gonna do is now I got this to scale. I want to verify my elevation. So the best way I can verify my elevation is the same render picture that we already had. I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna hit site. I'm gonna hit this section, and then I'm gonna bring in that elevation again just to make sure I'm all lined up. Guys, remember, when you're doing this, you always have to make sure that in everything that you do with grids and everything else, right? We want to make sure that regardless of the fact that we're lined up in all directions, which means that's going to be X, Y, and Z, and this is your Z direction. So now I'm going to insert again. All right, I'm going to import. All right. So now I'm going to go back to here. Oop, wrong one, sorry. CAD, and this is the image. And so now I'm going to go back. I'm going to bring in the final render, right? And then I'm going to do this, okay? So now I just want to verify the elevation, okay? Typically, you're going to look for what we call commonalities, right? And so when a commonality is perspective, you could say, okay, well, what's a door or a window or anything that you could say, well, what's going to be that height? So you, even just here, that make it be, 2 feet off of the wall. So in that case, I'm just going to type in RP. And I'm gonna take an RP and I'm just give an arbitrary number here. All right. I'm still gonna use my level, but now I want this RP to line up on something that I can measure. So now I'm gonna say, okay, cool. Let me go ahead and take this right here and I'm gonna align that there just right now. And I'm just gonna go ahead, move that down. Oops, wrong way. And we're gonna say, hey, I want this to be 2, whatever that is, right there, right? Here, right? Let's line it up over here. Then go back to my section. Okay. And my section is line A1, right? Here's the garage right here. So now let's say, okay, cool. Now, if that's the case, that's the garage. So what I'm going to do is, I think this is about 10 feet. All right, so if it's 10 feet, I'm going to switch to, I'm going to get rid of that. Annotate. All right, and I'm going to say this is going to be 10 feet. Ooh, where's 10 feet at on this drawing? I'm gonna go ahead and I'm going to bring this down here to 10 feet and see where the line is. All right, and so now I brought that down to 10 feet. That line is here. So now I got a line up here, right? That says 10 feet. So I'm gonna draw another one right here. I'm gonna do this because that's what it's saying. Oh, now here to here, that means I gotta scale it up. So now I'm gonna click on this again. I'm gonna scale this. And I'm gonna scale it to here. Oop, wrong thing. Always when you're scaling, you wanna go from where it is to here. All right, so now, okay, now I got a 10 feet of that garage. You see how there's a scale? All right, so now that's how I know where my elevation is. So I use the ground up to give my 10 feet scale. Now this is alignment. And the only thing I gotta do, see where this wall is here? Or this one right here? I'm gonna take this wall and I'm going to move it right at this corner. Move it right over here to A1. And now I got a scale. All right. And I got this locked proportion, but now I got a scale that's the complete height. All right. So I got A1 here. See that? So if I move this up, oh, you couldn't see it. But at least now I know what scale this needs to be. All right. And then elevation wise, I'm going to move this up. Right. I said 10 feet. So we're going to move this up and say, okay, cool. That's from 10 feet up right here. And I'm gonna line this up. All right, boom.